Welcome back, everybody. Let's try that again. Welcome back, everybody, to Quid Prog Quo, the musical podcast where I introduce my friends and loved ones to progressive rock music, and they in turn get me to listen to whatever they want. And today we have as we always do, a very special episode. They're all very special. I have a very good friend of mine, Sarah, coming back to regale me in some really good music. She decided to throw a soundtrack at me, so I'm pretty excited about that. I got her to listen to one of my favorite contemporary progressive rock bands, and I'm pretty excited to hear what she has in store for that. So, as always, a huge thank you to Olena Olinsky for the show's graphic, as well as Explosive Ear Candy for their track All Together Now, which is the soundtrack to this here podcast. So, without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. The recording, and yeah, there's this
I
whole audio stuff now.
I know, and I just did this yesterday with my friend because I was practicing a presentation and I wanted an audience and a recording.
Mhm.
Um, and that you get a little consent form if you're not the host. So I got to
Oh,
click like it's now being recorded. Do you want to continue or do you want to leave?
ooh, that's great.
Yeah, I love that.
Zoom thinking, I think it's a long time coming, but
Sure, yeah, I know it's been
you know,
a year and a half, so I
been
can't say
over
they've
a
been thinking
year.
ahead, but
But I'm glad that, better late than, well, I don't even want to say better late than never because it's not really, but it's good
it's
that
a
it's here
cool
now.
basic thing that they're now
Yeah, they're
including.
finally getting on a year after. Um, so yeah, diving into the podcast proper. Thank you so much for
Sure.
coming back on, Sarah.
Happy to be here.
The second coming, so to speak. I feel like I struck out when I introduced you to Genesis, or at least had you listen to Genesis. Um,
Well, I mean, I think that part of it was just the structure of the album really lulled me into a false sense of security before it hit me with like a 30-minute long song or
right,
whatever it was.
right. And do you want to remind our listeners and watchers kind of who you are and what your jam is?
What is my jam,
What is your jam?
like who I am as a person, or is
Sure,
my
like
jam as in who I am as a musical listener?
yeah, whichever one you want to go for. Like, I never want to give like a big philosophical "Who are you?" kind of a
Uh-huh.
question because I feel like most of us are like, I don't even know who I am, right?
Yeah.
So I figured if I let you answer it, you can take the question however you want to.
Sure. Well, my name is Sarah, and we have known each other for it must be close to four years now, or is it only 4 years now?
I think it might be more than that, but
It's hard to tell. I
yeah, the years begin to blend
however
together.
long I've worked at OLA is how long we have known each other.
Yes.
Um, and and yeah, in that time period, nothing has changed in my life, and many things have changed in your life. I feel like you've
Yeah.
moved like 5 times, and uh,
Do not recommend.
but I've just been here, and yeah, happy to catch up with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. And this is your second time on board. You had me listen to the Chicks' latest album upon recording,
I
and
did.
I had you listen to Foxtrot from Genesis.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was a net positive at the end of the day, net positive experience.
I think we both ended the day more cultured than when we
Mhm.
had started it, which is all anyone can ask for.
I agree. Yeah, and talking about the album that I'm having you listen to, this is the first album that I'm hesitant to give a listener.
Oh my
Everybody,
God.
I know. Well, everybody else, I'm like, okay, I know what they want. Like, I kind of have a feeling, an idea of their musical preferences, so I'm not going to go too far off the deep end. But this is the first one where I'm like, screw that. I'm just going to throw her into the deep end and see what happens. So,
I feel like that's what you did last time too. You were like, I haven't had anyone listen to anything that was prog rock yet, or like a deep cut, and that's what you had thrown me that time. So I'm happy to be your, I don't know.
my little guinea pig in that sense.
Perfect.
Yeah, without giving too much away, this is like an art rock, more modern band because I wanted to give you something from like our generation rather than back in the
Okay.
70s. So
Hmm.
they're a modern art kind of progressive rock. They like to stretch the boundaries, so at times it's like noise rock and sound rock.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's a little, that's why I'm prefacing it. The band that I'm
Uh-huh.
giving you is called Bent Knee.
Okay.
And I wanted to give you their third album, Say So, but
Hmm.
unfortunately, you can't find it anywhere.
Uh-huh.
I It's not on Spotify. They just have the one single off of it. I tried to find it on YouTube because sometimes YouTube has like a full playlist on it or like a full
Hmm.
album. And sadly, that is not the case. So I had to give you my second favorite album from them, which is
Uh-huh.
called You Know What They Mean. And it was released in 2019. So,
All right. I
yeah.
I am anxious and excited to give it a listen.
Yeah, it's very different. I will say
Hmm.
that. It's very different. And it has one of my favorite songs. Well, it has my favorite song from that year on the album. Um, and
Hmm.
to this day it's still one of my all-time favorite tracks of any band.
Okay.
So it comes with
And
a, yeah.
and it's a track, not a song. Like, is there no lyrics? Is that the
No, it is a song. It is a song.
okay?
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, keep your ear out and we can compare notes when we return. um,
Okay.
I am very excited to hear what you have in store because you asked me before this if soundtracks were a thing.
Yes, I did ask you that. I feel like in comparison, I'm giving you an enormous treat.
Oh, fun.
Um, it also is not available on Spotify, however, but it is available on YouTube.
Wonderful.
And I'm going to send you the link right now so that you have it. It is the Shrek 1 soundtrack, um,
Amazing.
which recently I learned via the Twittersphere just had its 20-year anniversary. And so
It
there was a lot
did.
of like think pieces around how well that movie has held up and how well that soundtrack has held up.
Yeah.
Um, so I've been enjoying listening to it all week, and I just wanted to give you a treat. That's what I'm here for, and
Oh man.
you were obviously going to enjoy it.
100% I am. I feel
Um,
almost bad for giving you bent knee, but
I yeah, I mean, I'm hoping at the end of this podcast you feel a little bit guilty
oh, 100% I
for what
will.
you've done to me.
I mean, I know that Smash Mouth their or maybe it's not. Is Smash Mouth somebody all-star on here?
Um, so yes, I think All Star is on here, as
Okay.
well as I'm a Believer,
A double shot of Smash Mouth. This is
a
going to be
double shot of
this
Smash
is just
Mouth.
going to be amazing because
Um,
without lying or being too hyperbole,
uh-huh.
their Astro Lodge is an absolute masterpiece and really should have been inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because there's not a single track off of that album that is less than a 9 out of 10.
Hmm.
Yeah,
There you go. I hope that that is how you feel at the end of this soundtrack as well, because it is all bangers all the time.
amazing.
And it was also really like formative. I mean, we're the same age, roughly speaking, and so this movie came into both of our lives
Hmm.
really right when we were learning what music is.
It's very true, and I do remember that. Like, man, I watched Shrek countless times when it first came out, and I had that like
Sure.
overly large VHS. Like it
Uh-huh.
wasn't like the Disney like plastic boxes that you would get. It was like
Mm-hmm.
that cardboard box that had like a little bit of a extra nubbin in
Uh-huh.
it. I don't know if you had that, but that
I
was
don't
the VHS tape that I had for it.
I don't know that I did. I
Hmm.
don't really even know what you mean by the nubbin. I remember the plastic boxes, but
Yeah, like Disney had the plastic kind of fold out book boxes.
uh-huh.
But Shrek had that cardboard, you know, those like slidey boxes that all the other VHSs came in.
Yeah.
It
Like
was
your home
like,
movies.
yeah, that's it. It was like that. It slid out the bottom, but there was like an extra, maybe about 5 centimeters
Hmm.
of just extra cardboard that was
Interesting.
a part of the box face.
Hmm.
So it stood out when you put it on like the shelf, just
Yeah,
that extra little bit.
kept it really top of mind for you.
Yeah, for sure. I always knew
Hmm.
exactly where it was.
Hmm.
So yeah, this is going to be a
Well,
great
that's
time.
yeah. I mean, enjoy your walk down memory lane. I will enjoy my art music introduction.
Yeah.
Um,
Best of luck. I'll see you on the other side. I am interested to hear your thoughts on this.
uh-huh. I will try
Because
to. I feel like last time I really failed you and I didn't take enough notes. I really just like experienced it.
oh
I'll try to be more thoughtful and
no, you do you, man. Like
in my listening.
if your process is just letting it sweep over, then let
Hmm.
it happen. If your process is more of taking notes, then by all means, take some notes.
All right. We'll see what I come up with.
Okay, I will see you when we get back from that.
Okay, sounds good.
And with that, Sarah and I go into our musical silos to experience one another's music. I feel really bad for having her listen to some pretty crazy experimental progressive rock. And I got to just chill with the soundtrack to Shrek. So, hey, what are you going to do? You roll the dice and that's what you get. I want to do a huge shout out to my patrons, and I have a new patron this time. Gabe Gillian is our newest addition to our Patreon family. So thank you so much, Gabe, for coming on and supporting me. And I also want to do a huge shout out to Grace. Grace has been a fantastic support for me throughout the years. So I always like to give her a shout out every once in a while. So thank you, Gabe and Grace. If you want to be cool like these cool cats, head on over to Patreon. That's Patreon/Notes Reviews. I've got different tiers, different rewards that you can donate to. Even $1 a month really does go a long way. And if you donate a little bit more, then you get some really fun things like you get a live stream and you'll get an album review. So yeah, that's Patreon/Notes Reviews. If you want to find out more of what I do, you can check me out on YouTube. I have the three. I've got my usual Notes Reviews. I've got this here podcast, Quid Prog Quo, as well as notes on tabletop role playing games where I talk about like Dungeons and Dragons and Paranoia. And I'm going to be talking about the Star Wars Fantasy Flight games really soon. And I've got this podcast here, Quid Prog Quo. So thank you so much, everybody, for sticking with me all these years. It's been a fun journey. So all that taken care of, let's dive back into the podcast proper, find out what Sarah thought of Bent Knee, and what I had a great time with Shrek, because how can you not? Let's dive back in. Does it work? Hello?
Hello.
There we are.
How are you?
I am well. It looks like you're doing some crafts.
I am. I have a little like model kit
Oh,
to make
cool.
a little like greenhouse. It's the perfect pandemic activity.
Oh, yeah. I see that like a lot of people have been doing like those mini things, like the miniature stuff.
Yeah, it's like it's immersive and finicky in a way that is really complementary to the current moment.
Right. Yeah. Everything needs to be exactly in its place and just so. Um, I, I can empathize with my own um like miniatures, like the little Dungeons and Dragons dudes that
Yeah,
I
I think
have.
it's really similar vibes.
Yeah, yeah. Just getting like the proper rust color on some of the metal is yeah, it's a good time.
Well, and like if for instance you're like living through a really newsy, alarming world,
Hmm.
it's nice to have something that's kind of like immersive and really like I don't know, it's just soothing.
Yeah,
Do you want to see what I made?
I do want to see what you made. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Um, we're on the plants section, so this is my little one, a little bouquet
That's amazing. What
of
is it like
flowers.
paper or something? What's the
It's
material?
paper and a
Wow.
bead.
That
And then this
wow.
is flowers number two, a different kind of flower
And that's
made
again
with
like paper.
paper.
That's
Yeah.
I would be terrified of like ripping the paper because like I've done origami
Uh-huh.
and if it's not just folded or crinkled in just the right way, it's unusable. So
Yeah, there's definitely enough paper provided that you, and it's so small, like it's it's like cut out 8 millimeters by 15 millimeters.
Oh,
Okay.
jeez.
So you can, I definitely feel like a giant and super clumsy. And
You should get one of those like magnifying glasses to just
I'm,
have.
I'm like half a step away. Sometimes I'm like making it and I'm using like tweezers to hold the thing
Yeah.
because my fingers are just too
They're,
stubby.
yeah, I mean, most people's fingers are, right? Like, it's just, unless you have like mice fingers, there's just no way.
I think you need to be a miniature in order to
Yeah.
make them comfortably.
Yeah. I think Stuart Little would be living his best life doing that. So,
There you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about Bent Knee? I'm kind of excited to hear what you thought about it because yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you really undersold it, or maybe you sold it
Hmm,
exactly perfectly because
okay.
I loved it. I really enjoyed the album.
Amazing. I'm so happy.
I don't know what I was expecting. I think because we have such like different like musical tastes,
Yeah.
when you introduce something to me, I just sort of assume that I'm gonna hate it or that it's gonna be like offensive to my ears. And
Right.
you sort of described it as art music, and I have a friend who is a musicology, she's now a PhD student, but we lived together when she was doing her undergraduate and then her master's.
Mhm.
And so she performed in a orchestra at U of T, and I
Oh,
would go
wow.
to all of her concerts.
Of course.
And sometimes they would do really like new modern contemporary music, and it would be really
Right.
like discordant and just
Yeah.
like hard to listen to. Like it wasn't very musical um
Right.
music. It was really like experimental. And
Yeah, of course.
so if you're not like into that kind of thing and don't really like have a frame of reference to like, wow, this is like
This is
upsetting
cutting
something,
edge
like,
and it's making
which
me
I
feel
didn't.
things. Yeah.
I'm just sitting there being like, okay, like
Let's go. Let's wrap this up, you guys.
um, and so that was sort of what I was expecting this to be going into it, but
Yeah.
like by contrast, it's like very musical and had a really like cool balance to the album with some stuff that was a little bit more intense, but like also things that were very like light and like just pretty, for lack of a
Hmm.
better word, to
Hmm.
balance it out. And the like lead singer has a really lovely voice. It's not no one's screaming at me like I'm being sung at, and it's quite nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to go so far and to give you anything that's like screaming or growling or anything like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have delicate little ears. I
Yeah.
don't know how
Yeah.
to deal with that. So
Well, I'm super stoked that you didn't hate it. And I'm actually very pleased that you enjoyed yourself with it.
yeah, I even hearted one of the songs, as in I
Oh,
will listen to it again.
which one was that?
Actually, it was two. It was It Happens and Bird Song.
Okay, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, both of those I really, really enjoy.
Hmm.
Um, I I do love Birdsong in how like contrast it is to a lot of the tracks that came before it because of how
Yeah.
like intense a lot of those tracks were, how grating and very bombastic they were. And then Birdsong is just very like chill. It's very like it's intimate for sure. It's
Hmm.
still very impactful, but in a little bit of a different way.
Well, no, and I think you're exactly right. Like coming off of Love Me Not is the one right before, and
Hmm.
it kind of feels like the album is it's really building, like a lot of the songs are building towards that, and it feels kind of climactic.
Yeah.
And then it like eases really nicely into Birdsong that feels kind of like a relief or like a breath of fresh air.
Hmm.
So it's not just like hammering you the whole time. It really is, the album I think is really like nicely constructed to
Yeah.
give you sort of those breaths. And still pushing. It's not like totally off the um I don't know,
Like off the
breaks or
rails or something
whatever.
like that.
Yeah.
Or
But yeah, I thought it was really great.
oh, fantastic. Yeah, my favorite song off of this is Catch Light. Um,
Hmm.
I just, whenever I hear, like the first time I heard it, it's one of those tracks where I very rarely do this, especially on first listens, but I listened to the song 3 or 4 times before I went on to the next track of The Garbage Shark.
Hmm.
Um, like I must have listened to that at least 5 times before I would allow myself to go on to the next track,
Yeah.
which is very rare for me because I always almost force myself to listen to an album from start to finish as kind of like one whole experience.
Hmm.
But yeah, there was something about Catch Light that got me very emotional, and I think about like
Oh.
the third time through, I started to get like all teary eyed.
Uh-huh.
I was just like, oh damn, this is doing something for me. Like, yeah.
That's so lovely. That's like a great thing for music to do. I did write notes true to my word, and
Ooh,
next to Catchlight, I not extensive notes. I just wrote peppy. So I now want to listen to it
peppy.
again.
Okay.
Maybe there's more to it than just being peppy.
Right. I guess for me, it's the build. It's the build up to that final
Yeah.
crescendo at the end that I can't help but love.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah, I really love that song. So.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I also love that you really touched on was the contrasts, like Bone
Hmm.
Rage and Cradle of Rocks, and even Garage or Garbage. I think it's Garbage Shark.
Yeah.
They're all very heavy, never to the extent of it being like metal, but like
Uh-huh.
it's very, yeah, heavy is the word that I would use. But
Yeah.
then you have tracks like Hold Me In and Birdsong, and to a certain extent, as well as like Golden Hour, that are much softer, a little bit more
Yeah.
ethereal. So,
Yeah, ethereal was one of the words that I jotted down. There's a lot of that.
all right.
Um, Next to Love Me Not, I wrote screeching of subway rails. It made me nostalgic for public
Mm,
transit.
yeah. Yeah, and especially what this was 2019.
Yeah,
So I was on the subway for at least 3 hours every day. So
yeah,
that made me very nostalgic of it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there any
The
other
things you
track?
miss.
Oh, like you wouldn't think that I would miss like being in a crowded subway, but there are some days where I'm just like, I really miss like that game of name that scent, that I'm just like,
Uh-huh.
oh man, is it BO or is it like a strange food
Someone's lunch.
item?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what other, you said you took notes. What other notes do you have? Was there any other like standout track or any track that you're like, oh God, don't let me listen to it again?
I didn't hate anything, I don't think.
Oh, good.
I next they're like notes that are almost completely unhelpful. Bone Rage, the note that I wrote next to it was Cherry Bomb. I think it like
Yep.
had that
I can hear
that
that.
sort of like immediate frame of reference to it.
Yeah. Very,
Um
very bombastic guitars. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean I love the like yeah, I just like loved the vibe of the lead singer as well. It just like felt like
Mhm.
a very like empowered and yeah, just like very
Mhm.
present voice.
Mhm.
Um, Give Us the Gold. I wrote feelings.
Feelings. I love,
Again,
yeah.
what did I mean by that?
What
I'm
did you
not
mean by
totally
that?
sure.
I love the groove of give us the gold, because it's like give us the gold, dun, 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 give us the gold, dun, dun, dun. It's very bopping.
And then I didn't write any notes for a long time, but apparently I loved Garbage Shark.
Okay. Yeah.
I thought I wrote Build Baby Build next to Golden Hour.
Very, very helpful notes. Yeah.
um, so I was clearly thinking something at the time, but
Yeah. You were in the zone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I really I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a really I don't listen to a lot of things like as an album. Like I
Uh-huh.
in contrast to you, I do have really like a more scattered
Right.
experience listening to music. It is often like just as a playlist or
Mm.
in the background while I'm working or whatever. So it was nice to just sit down and listen to something all the way through. And I thought this one was uh, just a very good album to do that with. So
Excellent. I'm so
mhm.
pleased that I didn't completely rake your ears. So I'm very happy
Yeah,
about that, because I
I feel
was.
like this is how you should introduce all of the albums is really like set low expectations. And I'm like, hey, that was it.
Hey, all right.
I'm not bleeding. This is great.
If I set the bar low, I can only go up, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I'll try that from now on. Great, great. And you said you would return to a few of these songs, so
I
that's
would, yeah.
beautiful. Okay.
Yep.
And you had me listen to the Shrek soundtrack.
That is what I had you listen
That is
to.
what you had
Yeah.
chosen. Yeah. When you were saying is soundtracks all right, I was thinking of it being like a
A
score.
score. Yeah.
Yeah, because the second or third episode of this whole podcast series, my friend Gemma had me listen to the Assassin's Creed soundtrack,
Oh yeah.
and it's like 2 hours long, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna do it, and it's
Buckle up.
buckle up, I'll get a lot of reading done. But no, this is like a legit like compilation of songs soundtrack.
Yeah. This is like a
Yeah.
mixtape.
It is a mistake. Yeah, and I also have notes.
Mhm.
Even though I knew pretty much most of these tracks.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it really brought me back to that 2001 really more innocent, happy time.
Hmm.
Because when did the movie actually come out? Like
I
what?
think you were bang on. I think it was 2001.
Yeah, but like what month? Because that really does sway it. Because 2001 was a little bit of a heavy year for a couple of
Oh,
reasons.
I
Yeah,
guess that's true.
and I want to
I
say
think
like
it
I want to say it was a more innocent time, but depending on the month,
it was June. It was June
June.
18th.
So then it
So it was
definitely
really right under the wire
it
of
was
our
right under the
innocence.
wire. Yeah. So
Mhm.
very innocent. That summer of 2001. I was excited because that was my first year going into high school, to
Mhm.
date myself. So and Spider-Man, the movie was right around the corner. I
Uh-huh.
was still riding the high from X-Men. So like this little nerd in me was just like so excited. And of course, I'm a Disney child, like born
Yeah.
and raised, right? So I the contrast and the different tone that Shrek brought to the animated feature length film
Mhm.
was so rejuvenizing, and I loved it. As I've matured, I'm starting to see the cracks and the flaws of the film. But I also have to realize that it was a different time. There
Sure.
were different personalities involved in the film, and they show. But if we're just talking about the soundtrack, it's a pretty stellar soundtrack.
Wait, I mean, I know this isn't what your podcast is about, but I haven't rewatched Shrek in ages. So I actually
Oh,
have not, I don't know how well that holds up. What were the things
oh,
that I don't know, like peaked for you
oh
as sort of
boy. So without going too far into it, because I mean I could talk a lot about it, right? Um, a
maybe
lot
that's a
of
whole other podcast.
it's a
This is
whole other podcast.
rewatching
Yeah, rewatching because this
movies.
was like other before this, all of the DreamWorks, I almost said Dreamcast, the DreamWorks animated films were like um the Prince of Egypt and
Hmm.
Spirit, and like very family friendly, always had some kind of a moral behind it.
Uh-huh.
um and then Shrek came out because this was the first film for um oh shoot, what's his face, Lasender, I think that's his
I don't
name.
know. You know more
um
things than I do.
yeah, I almost said Jeff Bezos, but like they're both bald and they're both exceedingly rich. um Shrek director. Yeah, what's his face? Nope, that's not director. I want producer then. Producer. He came off of being, that's it, Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Mm-hmm.
He was the CEO of Disney before Mike, whatever his name is, took over.
Hmm.
Um, and so he took a lot of that internalized spite from being fired from Disney and applied it to this film.
Got it.
And what is more of like what can be interpreted as like this counterculture to all the happy-go-lucky feel-good Renaissance films from Disney that he essentially spearheaded, like Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin
Hmm.
and Lion King, was kind of applied to this one. So you have the inverted expectations. The real beauty is what you find underneath.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a few of that now bleeds through that you're like, oh, this is just Jeffrey being overly spiteful about the Disney Corporation. like, oh
That's
wow.
some real like inside scoop that you've got there.
Yeah, it's so weird because what I always picture as just being common knowledge, I realize really isn't. Because I'll just, binge a whole bunch of these like documentaries about these films from
Mhm.
my childhood, and then I'll start talking about it as though it's like nomenclature or like common knowledge, and people will be like, "How do you know all this stuff?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I don't know." So anyway, that's that. Um, the
That's the
soundtrack was,
movie.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
the
the movie. The soundtrack was
soundtrack.
great.
That's
Um,
great.
I was surprised how many current meme songs there are on this.
hmm
And I
Let's
don't,
walk through the memes.
yeah, like I don't know if this was because our generation was kind of at, we were figuring out our musical identities at this time
hmm
and kind of like solidifying those. And maybe that's part of the reason. Like, obviously, Smash Mouth, even though I will attest that All Stars is a genuinely great song.
Sure.
Um, I I already said that Astro Lounge is, one of my top 5 favorite albums. Um, but it's followed up by Hallelujah,
Uh-huh.
which is also then followed up with I'm on My way. And I
Yeah.
find like these 3 tracks are
hmm
very memeable.
Yeah.
Especially like, unfortunately, I've been tainted by the internet and I can no longer hear Hallelujah without thinking Waluigi, because it has the same cadence.
Uh-huh.
So whenever I listen to it, I always think Waluigi, Waluigi.
That's like a lot of the year 2001 altogether.
It really, really is. And lately I've been watching a lot of different TikToks with I'm on my way.
Uh-huh.
With either people sitting on their like whey protein or their Nintendo Wii console and being like, I'm on my way.
Uh-huh.
So
Um,
yeah.
no, I mean, these are, I think that there's so much nostalgia to be wrapped up in these songs. Like, I don't even know how to unpack how much of just like what I thought was cool and
Hmm.
therefore still think is cool.
Of course.
Because of not just this movie soundtrack. Like, I think that um, a lot of movie soundtracks from this time and like especially like leading up into 2007 2008 with like cool show soundtracks like the OC
Yeah.
soundtracks were like what I thought was cool music.
Oh yeah.
As just like, and if I was listening to that stuff I knew that I was all right.
Yeah. You were
Because
in.
that's
You
what the
were.
cool kids on TV were listening to
That's
or
right.
living
Yeah.
their lives to.
For me, it was the Scrubs soundtrack with the Garden State soundtrack, because it was both Zach Braff, and at that point I thought
Uh-huh.
like Zach Braff was like the coolest. And looking back, I'm like, oh no, he's not. But he's fine. He's a fine guy. But in terms of cool, I wouldn't quite. But anyway, that's how I got into like Polyphonic Spree and the Shins. So
Uh-huh. Yeah, the
can't go.
Shins was the Garden State
Was
and
the Garden
was
State one? Yeah.
yeah.
Um.
Because it's not only in that movie, it is like
Oh, it is like
it
forced.
is you they tell you that it's
They
cool
they
and then they
tell
have you
you.
listen to it.
Yeah, like that was one of the first memes that I remember, was like redubbing that scene with Natalie Portman with different
uh,
sounds and different music.
yeah.
Like I remember seeing one, and what song was it? Oh, this is going way, way back, but I think it was like Tiny Tim's "Tiptoe Through the Tulips."
Uh-huh.
It's just like so ridiculous. It's like, this is a cool song. Tiptoe through the tulips. Well,
Yeah, you can do a lot with that.
it's got a lot of like potential there.
Mhm.
Um, I also didn't realize that the Baha Man actually put out a different, like another song outside of Who Let the Dogs Out. Like that came out of nowhere for me.
I hadn't even connected that song with Who Let the Dogs Out, but you're quite right.
Yeah. Um, uh, Actually getting into this and actually talking about the music, I will admit that the Dana Glover, "It Is You,"
hmm
um, that Fiona song, like her kind of ballad and her reprising theme, is quite moving and quite beautiful as a standalone track. And I love when soundtracks do this and they take like the main theme of something and put it to a song.
Hmm.
It reminded me of The Land Before Time with like Littlefoot's theme, and then they put it to like this heart-wrenching ballad. Um, yeah, it was quite moving in that sense. Yeah. Um, the only other notes that I have, wait for that, um, is Jason Wade's track, You Belong to Me.
Hmm.
It came off a little bit more threatening than I thought it was going to.
Sure.
Yeah. Like with
Some
his one
things,
his one
some things
one
don't hold up.
yeah, his one track of like, just remember when you get home you belong to me, and I'm like, oh man, that's a little more threatening and forceful than I think you intended.
I think that I thought that that was such a romantic song when I was a pre-teenager.
Right. Yeah.
It's got the acoustic guitar.
It's
It's
got
got
it's
the
got
overbearing.
yeah, it's got a lot of the elements, but it also, I don't know, there's just this whole, for me it reminded me of Phantom of the Opera, where Christine is looking
Yeah.
at the ring that Raoul has, and Phantom's like, you
Uh-huh.
belong to me. I'm like, whoa man, she doesn't belong to anybody, but okay,
She's her own person.
she's her own person, she's Christine. um, yeah, so I overall I had a great time with this, very nostalgia. I was sitting here playing some Pokemon, getting myself like right back to that 2001 Michael, reuniting myself with that guy, having a grand old time. It was pretty swell.
Oh, I'm so glad that you got to take a little walk down memory lane and
Yeah,
see some songs through new light.
it's true. I mean, it definitely made me want to go back and re-listen to Astro Lounge for like the billionth time. So
As you should.
as I really should. So yeah, yeah. Thanks for coming on board and giving me that experience. That was fantastic.
And thank you for the introduction to this album that I actually might listen to some songs from again. It's way above my expectations.
I mean, that's all I can really hope for. Yeah. Is there anything you want the listeners or viewers to know? This is your kind of moment to plug whatever you want to plug.
I don't know that I have anything to plug, except that when I was listening to that album, I was thinking to myself that what I really should have had you listen to um, was the like Linda's full album. I'm sure you've seen
Oh, the Linda Lindas?
the Linda's. Yeah,
Hells
I'm sure you've
yeah.
seen that one song circling around, but I haven't listened to the full album. And
Oh.
obviously, I need to, and obviously, you should too.
Yes, and I will caveat that punk is my least favorite genre of music. So
Interesting.
it is. It's the only one that I haven't really connected with. Um, and it's not through lack of trying. It's just,
Sure.
I just don't, it's just not for me. Although there is something about maybe that I'm older and I'm seeing the rebellious young and like the causes that they're for. I'm like, I can get behind this.
Uh-huh.
I appreciate and I admire their energy and that angst. Um, but yeah, when I was that age and listening to it, I'm like, nah, man, let's just all be friends. So
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think that when we were that age, punk was not about anything.
no, we had bands like Blink 182 and Sum 41 and like the bubblegum punk that was just more
Hmm.
about, having your extra mozzarella sticks. So
Which I
yeah,
mean, it's not. That's a relatable feeling, but it's not
it
a
is.
cause.
No, no. I mean, it is part of the human experience, but it's not something to rally against. So, um, thank you for coming on board and indulging. It was great. And I'm still trying my best to like end these in a very flowy and natural way without tripping over
Uh-huh.
myself.
You're doing
So,
great.
oh, thank you. I'm going to thank my viewers and listeners for tuning in to another episode of Quid Prog Quo. And I'm just going to remind them to just keep sharing music, everybody. Nailed it.